Hey, hi. Welcome to another exhilarating episode of Best Boy Millionaire. It is a few days after Airbnb went public, and I wanted to chime in on this because I have some thoughts on it. Having, it's not past tense, I'm still an Airbnb host. I currently have Airbnb guests that are not short term, they're long term now because of the bylaws in Toronto. The IPO, as I'm going through looking at some of the numbers here, I could be off on these numbers, but when Airbnb went public on, I was saying December 10th, went public at about 144. It dipped on December 15th down to 125, and now it's back on the rise. So, this is all about my opinions on what this stock is going to do and should you invest in it. And I have some very strong opinions about it because I have been an Airbnb host for about 10 plus years. I started out doing short-term rentals before Airbnb was a big thing here in Toronto. And then I got onto the Airbnb platform. The first year I got onto the Airbnb platform, I made $12,000. I think that was 2000 and I want to say 2014. The last year that I calculated before the pandemic, so for total 2019, my revenue for Airbnb was over $440,000. Yeah, I'm not kidding. That's in part because I was converting my long term into short term, and so my list of listings grew, so my revenue grew, and I learned how to use the platform, and I learned how to maximize it, and I had great success with it. But like I said before, because of the bylaws, I can't rent my places out for short term anymore. They have to be 28 days more. So short term is really kind of vacation, folks. Long term, 28 days or more, are people that are here to work, or they're here for family, or they're here to do, or they're booking my places for renovations, etc. So I will continue along that path and rent out for long term because legally I can't for short term. But this whole video is about why I believe Airbnb is going to have a huge surge in their stock price for a couple of reasons. So, you're watching YouTube. YouTube is an interesting business model. When you think about YouTube, really think about it, it's just a channel. It's like NBC, CBS, ABC back in the day. But it's a channel that the difference is NBC, ABC, CBS, their content, they had to pay to get that content made. So the model was NBC, I have to make shows, I'm going to pay for those shows, I'm going to get advertisers that are hopefully going to pay me more. And the difference between what NBC paid to make the show and the advertising revenue I get is going to be my profit. But there's an underlying cost. If you're NBC, you got to make shows. YouTube, the magic of YouTube has been YouTube doesn't pay anybody to make the content. That's what we're doing. All these other YouTubers, they make the content. YouTube has an infrastructure cost, but they're still getting ad revenue, right? Ad revenue is coming in. Content makers are making the content, but it's not overhead for YouTube. The overhead for YouTube is to make the whole system work better and to provide support for the content makers. So that's their overhead. There's probably other things, but the biggest expense is for NBC was, oh, I got to pay all these stars, I got to pay all these writers, I got to pay all these directors. Okay. Airbnb is kind of like the YouTube of travel. Airbnb really doesn't have any overhead. They're the largest hotel chain, in a way, that provides accommodations for people. But they have 0 properties. They don't own anything, right? They have hosts, they have guests. The hosts do all the hosting work. The guests go and enjoy themselves. The hosts get charged, like I did, a certain percentage, like 3%. The guests get charged. The hosts and the guests come together. They hopefully have a great vacation and a great relationship. And Airbnb takes a cut. But Airbnb owns 0 properties. Also, the way of travel has changed. I've seen it change being a host, and I saw the way people just got into the whole Airbnb world. Hotels were taking like a hit. It's part of the reason why the bylaws have changed in all the major cities to outlaw Airbnb hosts like myself, but that's a different video. So what's happened with the pandemic is all those travel industries that had high overhead took a hit. Hotels that have to pay leases, travel like planes, trains, automobiles, however you had to get to where you had to get. They also had to pay leases and loans to run those hard costs for those travelers. They took the biggest hit. While Airbnb, they laid off a bunch of employees. But when this starts back, and I've seen some statistics, there was one statistic this morning that there was like 5 or 6 things that people were asked, what are the first things you're going to do? And the top 3 or 4 were all related to travel. There are vaccines. They're here. People are using them. And people are going to start feeling comfortable to go out and about, and the restrictions are going to be lifted. And when they're lifted, the number top 2, 3, 4 things I saw was all about travel. And they're going to hit up every opportunity, every option to go traveling. But the difference is only Airbnb has the travel business that didn't count on a lot of overhead. So when the switch goes back on for traveling, they just have to go, okay, we're going to hire our people back. They weren't paying leases on property or on vehicles like planes and trains and automobiles, etc. They could just flip the switch back on, and people have been used to traveling on Airbnb for the last at least 8 years. They're just going to go back to it. And all the hosts that lost money are going to go, yep, thank you, you're back. I will gladly accept you, and I will gladly have you back in my home or my multiple homes, like myself. But like I said, I can't do it for short term. So my prediction is Airbnb will do really, really well. And at the beginning of it, they were reeling, the press was saying, oh, they're letting go of all these people, et cetera, et cetera. So did the airlines, so did the hotels. But how many of those people are coming back if those hotels are still there? The city of Toronto already talked about buying hotels that had gone bankrupt to provide affordable housing for the homeless. This was like months ago. Those hotels aren't coming back. Those businesses are gone. All those planes sitting on tarmacs in the Vegas desert. My brother-in-law works in the industry, and he said, he's got in the airline industry. He says, I have a friend that he was just flying planes to the desert in Las Vegas just to park them there. Because you got to pay if you're going to park them in an airport, and you're going to have to pay for maintenance and all that. They love it. He said they love to park them in the desert because it kind of preserves them, and they don't have to pay for anything. Well, there's fees, but not the fees that you have to pay if you're going to park a plane at an airport hangar in Pearson or whatever, or JFK or Heathrow. So yeah, so getting back to the point, I think Airbnb would be a really good investment, and I think that oddly enough, it became one of the shining stars through this whole thing. And when the surge of travelers comes back, they're going to benefit from it. I think the other airlines are going to do well. The other hotels that survive, they're going to do well. But it's that underlying hard cost that they have. They own all that stuff. They got to pay bills. And like I said, Airbnb, they own zero property. They just own a platform that they've proven that works for people, and people like it, enjoy it. It's not perfect. There's ups and downs, but I still think it's going to be a great bet. Okay, thank you very much for listening. I forgot, please subscribe. Another video is coming up, and the subscribe button I think is there, or it could be no, I think it's gonna be like that. And I hope you enjoyed this. And when you do subscribe, please leave a note, a comment. I'd like to thank you for subscribing, and so I'll reply. That's all I got. Airbnb, Busboy Millionaire, out. Bye.